we live in a complex world, not just a complicated world, a complex world. Climate change is a very complex problem. The great thing about complexity is it has emergent properties. Things come out that you would never anticipate. In fact, you cannot anticipate them. And the good thing about that gives every single person, all 7 billion of us, are agents for change. Most of us will fail. Most of our ideas will wither and die on the vine. But a few seeds will sort of flower and come forth. And the role of society then is to nurture those ones. And it inspires optimism. You have to have a reduction rate that people say cannot fit with our current economic framing of society. So in their sense, economics trumps physics. And it inspires optimism. At the end of the day, the climate does not care if we have lots of renewables. It does not care if we have lots of efficiency. It only cares if we leave the fossil fuels in the ground. So as well as making the transition to renewables, we also have to make sure that we keep the fossil fuels in the ground. And it inspires optimism. You have to have a reduction rate that people say cannot fit with our current economic framing of society. So in their sense, economics trumps physics. And it inspires optimism. Just make this point about what you're calling geoengineering, but some people prefer to call it negative emission technologies. That's one of the options where we suck the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. That's one of the geoengineering options that's available. That is already embedded in all of the scenarios that governments are using to think about what they need to do. So it is already, it's in there and it is hidden. So we look at the IPCC scenarios, virtually all of the IPCC scenarios for 2 degrees centigrade assume you can have negative emission technologies, suck the CO2 out of the air. So they don't exist. And it inspires optimism. First IPCC report came out in 1990, and the emissions this year will be 60% higher than they were in 1990. So we've pretended to care about climate change for a quarter of a century now. You have to have a reduction rate that people say cannot fit with our current economic framing of society. So in their sense, economics trumps physics. And it inspires optimism. But what we're not yet prepared to think about are what that means. We have to play that out in terms of policy, in terms of our day-to-day lives. So there's still a huge disconnect. In the last millennia, the emissions have been about almost 2.5% higher growth than they were during the 1990s. We're still running very scared of actually recognising the implications for what that means for contemporary society. And it inspires optimism. You have to have a reduction rate that people say cannot fit with our current economic framing of society. So in their sense, economics trumps physics. And it inspires optimism. I think we have all the tools we need to resolve this problem pretty much at our fingertips now, but we're not prepared to use the ones that we have. And those tools are those twofold ones, as I said before. They're quite significant, well, very significant social change for a few in the short to medium term, and engineers doing what engineers have been very good at doing for decades and not centuries, and that is change our infrastructure. And it inspires optimism.